For the last months of 2025, Nicki Minaj seemed to get more and more involved in right-wing pro-Trumpy politics, and was also delightfully transphobic in the process. She seemingly caught the latest Starship to Planet bigotry. I will not apologize for the atrocity of that pun. So it all started back in November when she shared a TikTok from the White House that had some anti-trans messaging in it alongside some other things that are not so pleasant. It was basically praising Trump for banning trans women from women's sports. And it wasn't just about banning trans women from women's sports, who were obviously referred to as men in the post because that is just the way transphobia goes, is also being anti-immigration, and literally ended with saying world peace, insinuating that the Trump administration in 2025 had achieved world peace. If you needed any more evidence to not believe a word they say, there it is. I honestly would have believed you if you told me that it was a parody White House account that had posted this, but no. She also reshared another clip from the White House that used one of her own songs and showed Donald and Melania Trump doing things, wearing a hat, walking around, there was a plane in it, I don't know. And this has widely been taken as support for the use of her music in the promotion of Donald Trump and the current US presidency. Nicki Minaj is now in the minority of music artists who allow Trump and the current presidency to use her music in their promotion, with actually a lot of artists in the past having spoken out against Trump and the White House and anything to do with Trump and the current US presidency using their music to promote it. This includes Beyonce, Sabrina Carpenter, Celine Dion, Sinead O'Connor's Estate, and Olivia Rodrigo, amongst many, many others. Minaj obviously received criticisms for her resharing of Donald Trump things, and one person wrote, "Gagging over Donald Trump when he doesn't support half your fan base is a choice." Very true. Big choice. Big, bad choice. Other people also criticized her, including saying things like, "Nicki Minaj being a transphobe was not on my 2025 bucket list, but I'm actually not surprised." And she's also received specific criticism for aligning herself with a president and an administration who have views and policies that go directly against not only who she is, but also a majority of her fan base. Nicki Minaj, being an undocumented immigrant herself with a POC and queer fan base, is shamelessly reposting xenophobic and transphobic white supremacist propaganda. She's really going out sad. And in 2018, Nicki Minaj literally spoke about her experience of coming over to the United States at 5 years old and being an undocumented immigrant. "I came to this country as an illegal immigrant," the rapper wrote on Instagram. Honestly, just making it even more shocking that she would align herself with Donald Trump. However, even in 2015, she was kind of giving mixed messages about him. She described his approach as childish, but while saying that there were points that he had that wouldn't be so bad if his approach were just different, as in less childish. I think it's a lot more than just his approach, which yes, is terrible. And she also stated that he was hilarious from an entertainment perspective. Not entirely positive, but not entirely serious or a call out. Then in 2020, she again expressed mixed feelings over Donald Trump, but she did state that she was not gonna jump on the Donald Trump bandwagon. But how did that pan out? Not very well, apparently. Let's jump back to now, and last month, December 2025, Nicki Minaj attacked California Governor Gavin Newsom and trans youth in a buy one get one free bigotry. Minaj shared a post on X, and honestly this is a side quest, but if I could give one piece of advice on how to help improve your mental health for the next year and going forward beyond that, get yourself off X/Twitter. It is just a cesspit of shit. Anyway, in this cesspit of shit, Nicki Minaj shared a post that referenced a video where Newsom said, "He wants to see trans kids. I have a trans godson. There's no governor that signed more pro-trans legislation than I have. No one has been a stronger advocate for the LGBTQ+ community, but you have to accommodate the reality of those whose rights are being taken away as we advance the rights of the trans community in terms of fairness in athletic competition." Most of what he said here is actually really off and is just echoing, albeit somewhat softer than right-wing politicians would say it, but still echoing right-wing anti-trans rhetoric. And his statements have been condemned by GLAAD. He didn't exactly come out raring full of trans support there. It was not a very trans positive thing that he was saying. But Nicki Minaj seemed to jump on the fact that within this statement he had said, "I want to see trans kids." And despite the fact that this was probably the only thing or one of the very few things that could be read as being trans positive in what he said, Minaj attacked him for it. For what? For acknowledging that trans kids exist? Is that the point that we're at now? And she tweeted quite a lot about him and seemed to pair some of her tweets about him with images of Chucky, you know, the murderous doll.
Hi, I'm Chucky.
Imagine being the guy running on wanting to see trans kids. Haha, not even a trans adult would run on that. Normal adults wake up and think they want to see healthy, safe, happy kids. Not Gav. The Gav nots. Gav out. Send in the next guy. I'm bored. Chucky image. Firstly, this just reads as messy AF. Like, what is she even really trying to say? And then is she insinuating that trans kids aren't healthy, safe, or happy? Trans kids are healthy. There is nothing unhealthy about being transgender, and their safety and happiness is only jeopardized by bigots with the kind of views that she is now echoing. Bigots who refuse to acknowledge and accept the existence of trans kids. And actually, trans adults would acknowledge the existence of trans kids and want to see more visibility and representation for those trans kids and be able to see trans kids living their best lives. Trans adults would also go on to say a lot more pro-trans things other than just saying they wanted to see trans kids out in the world. Very bizarre that somebody would be simultaneously transphobic and try to speak on behalf of what the trans community thinks and wants within one paragraph. Kim Petras, a musician and transgender woman, and someone who has literally collaborated with Nicki Minaj on a song, seemingly clapped back at Minaj's latest descent into bigotry. Shortly after Nicki Minaj posted her insinuation that trans kids are not healthy, Petras posted the following. Trans kids are healthy, by the way. It wasn't in direct response and it did not mention Nicki Minaj. However, many people have made the reasonable assumption that Petras's post is in relation to what Nicki Minaj was saying. But Nicki Minaj was not done with her posting. Oh no, she carried on talking about Newsom, and it was incredibly bizarre. Oh, Gavi poo, it only gets worse from here for you, buddy. It's the end of the road for you, my love. Get on the nearest jet ski and let that beautiful hair blow in the wind. It will make you happier than this race that you will not win. Enjoy life. Peace. Chucky image. Wanting to see more trans kids, Newsom. Gruesome. Haha. Fire victims? Nah. Hollywood? Nah. Swatting calls to homes with innocent children? Nah. Gavin wants one thing. Trans kids, Newsom. This one made me laugh really loud. LMFAO. Gotta admit, I'm funny. That's funny. Then it got weirder and she started suggesting that Gavin Newsom himself was transgender by saying, let's wait, I think Gavi's still transitioning. And also made a further post that showed an image of Newsom, like an edited image of him behind bars, saying, career politician at the brink of his moment realigns to become nothing more than a Nicki Minaj anti. Oh, so now he's the guy running on wanting to see trans kids and willing to lower himself to becoming just another female rapper to get obliterated by Nicki Minaj. Hashtag free Christians, hashtag new scum. At this point, it's all sounding so strange that it reads as a parody, and I really wish it were just one big joke. A joke of somebody pretending to fall in line with the extreme right-wing bigots and go on really, really bizarre Twitter rants just to then turn around and be like, it's a joke, I just wanted to see how everyone would respond. Still would have been weird, but less weird than what's going on right now. And now the most recent thing that's happened at the time I'm making this video is that Nicki Minaj took part in a Turning Point Q&A with Erica Kirk, where she reconfirmed her very apparently strong pro-Trump views. This is one of the big clips making the rounds at the minute.
Be boys.
Amen.
Be boys. It's okay. Be boys. It's nothing wrong with being a boy. How about that?
Amen.
How powerful is that? How profound is that?
Amen.
Boys will be boys. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's not what I would consider profound. It was actually a very affirming statement for all the trans boys out there, though. Being serious, though, these statements went unchallenged and were just shitty and very bizarre. They reinforce harmful stereotypes and gender expectations. Because no, boys should not just
be boys.
Boys will be boys is a statement that leads to entitled assholey men. And it's also not surprising that given her recent anti-trans statements and viewpoints, this clip has also been interpreted to be about trans women. Nicki just on stage being blatantly transphobic, oh my god. And with so many statements along this vein that it was a transphobic comment, and as of the time I'm making this video, nothing being said by Nicki Minaj or anybody involved in this situation, it's not looking great. During the Q&A, she also shared about the recent tweets she made about Gavin Newsom, the very bizarre ones. I personally would be very embarrassed to share them. She went on to say that she has the utmost respect and admiration for Trump, and pivoted back to talking about Newsom at some point again, and encouraged young men watching to not be like him, saying, you have amazing role models like our handsome, dashing president, and you have amazing role models like the assassin, J.D. Vance, our vice president. That assassin comment was incredibly awkward given who she was speaking to.
Assassin J.D. Vance, our vice president. And when I say that,
Oof. Describing Donald Trump as handsome and dashing, though?
Handsome, dashing president.
I'm partly joking, partly being serious that kind of shows you everything you need to know. I'm not about to trust someone's opinion on anything, really, if they're going about unironically calling Donald Trump dashing and handsome. Erica Kirk also asked Nicki Minaj about the backlash that she's been facing from the industry, and I guess that question could also be seen as encapsulating the backlash from her fans, as in the fans that made her career. And Nicki Minaj said she hadn't noticed.
I didn't notice.
Amen. I feel the same way.
How lovely. Like, really, I'm sorry, but that's like if somebody's done something wrong, you going, I notice that a lot of people are upset with you right now, and you've been told off for this thing that you've done that's caused hurt. How does that make you feel? And it's the ultimate, like, I'm not going to take accountability of this. I didn't notice. What? I did something wrong? People are not happy with me? Seriously? In all honesty, who knows if she actually notices or actually cares? If anybody's a fan of Nicki Minaj, though, anymore, why? But taking this away from Nicki Minaj as an individual and talking about when these situations happen and we see these celebrities who have always been more assumedly left-leaning, large LGBTQ plus fan bases, that kind of thing, my assumption is that when this happens and they go down the right-wing rabbit hole, there's a lot of money involved, a lot of yes men, a lot of ego stroking, or at least a lot of money part, or else what other motivation is there for people to so publicly destroy their careers or hop into a completely different career and have to rebuild an entire fan base? And also just saying, if you are not a cis het white man, it's really dangerous territory. It might be trans people and immigrants right now who are being targeted a lot. However, this is going to be trickle down. They're not the only people that are being targeted either. We've already seen calls for the Supreme Court to reverse gay marriage in the United States. It didn't happen. It got rejected. However, this is bubbling away. Anybody from a marginalized community should not be supporting a presidency like Trump's, because they are not just anti-trans, they are not just anti-immigration, they are not just anti-trans, they are anti a lot of other things.
We're next.
Anyway, back to my point, we can't say what's happened specifically to make Nicki Minaj start taking this stance, whether it's the stance that she's privately held for years and now publicly feels that she can share it, or whether something else is going on. I don't know. But going back to the hypothetical, people who do this kind of trajectory, it would take a lot to convince me that there's not something else going on, that they've not fallen down this right-wing rabbit hole, actually genuinely believing everything they're saying and actually feeling safe and secure and supported by the politics that they are now leaning into. I would really struggle with that there is happiness and contentedness in being extremely right-wing. There seems to be a lot of anger, and it only gets more confusing given that in the past Nicki Minaj has posed herself as being an LGBTQ plus ally. She has an incredibly large LGBTQ plus fan base. She doesn't exactly have like a fan base that would stick by her going into right-wing politics. To turn your back on fans that made your entire career and fall into politics that go against those fans that made your entire career, that's a massive kick in the teeth. That's a really weird move.
Choices.
I wanted to finish this video on the pledge that Nicki made several years back that seems to have turned out to be fake.
I pledge allegiance to the drag.
If there's something the far right really don't like other than trans people and immigrants, it's drag queens. How do you go from being a guest judge on the most prolific drag show in the world to aligning yourself with Donald Trump in just a few years? I don't get it. Quickly though, to end this on a slightly more positive note, speaking of Drag Race, several of the past queens from RuPaul's Drag Race have spoken out and called Nicki Minaj out on her behavior, including Heidi in Closet, Maga Minaj, so it was more than just my hair and makeup you hated, atting her directly. I respect that. And Monet Exchange. Imagine coming for trans people when your entire body is a billboard for gender affirming care. At Nicki Minaj. Imagine, truly imagine the ridiculousness. Oh my god. Anyway, this has been a dive into Nicki Minaj's journey down the right-wing bigoted rabbit hole. well. I hope you are up to date. I hope you enjoyed it. It honestly took me longer to get round to speaking about this than it normally would because A, Christmas and New Year, and also the main thing that I heard for a while was referring to JD Vance as an assassin. That kind of did the rounds a lot more prevalently than the anti-trans stuff did, but now like on my feed I'm getting a lot more of the other things that were said, so I wanted to talk about it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Give the video a like and subscribe if you want to, but no pressure. You're going to see some names going up the screen of my lovely Patreons. Thank you so much for supporting me over on Patreon. I really appreciate it. And a big shout out to my top tier Patreons: Tig, Kia, Tasha, Night Soul, Sugar Joe, Ailden K, Nesta, The Third Hatman, Max Makes Mods, Dylan Irving, Rive Champimon, Chloe, Iona Balash, TNS Mum, Sally Drew, Randy, Albar, Marv Mallow, Rachel Raptor, Jesse Entwistle, Gosco, Sienna Lamb, Slayer, Sarah Hobbs, The Paisley Prince, Riley Ray, Bildad the Shuite, @8_Mars, Claire Henley, and Marin. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it and it means a lot. So thanks again. And thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, or enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy this kind of topic, and I will see you next time. Much love. Bye.